Explained by the Billy Meier contacts. Mysteries, myths, legends, conspiracy theories, historical inaccuracies, and more. Compiled by David Chance, revised October 18, 2023.
Bermuda Triangle. Contact Report 033.
I am interested in something about which you may be able to give me some information. The pyramid guys kidnap folks when that fits into their interests. A few days ago, I read something about such abductions, according to which, especially in the Bermuda Triangle, folk are supposed to be being abducted by extraterrestrials in large numbers. This is said to have been the case for many years, and a certain Mr. U.V. Berners from Gut Wüstefeld, 6444 Atzelrode in Deutschland even explains in an article by the number 13 of the Neuen Zeitalter New Age from 23 March 1975 that the extraterrestrials working there are practically spawns of Satan. Contrary to this, a few weeks earlier I received an article about these events in the Bermuda Triangle from a group member. In this article, the events in that place where folk and even entire ships constantly disappear are attributed to a certain piracy of the high seas. Are you now informed about these things? And if so, how does the matter behave?
I am aware of these occurrences, but they are not in the least mysterious. Tracing back these events to alien powers is truly nothing but nonsense. Sure, there are certain things in the Bermuda Triangle that are related to extraterrestrial intelligences, but not in the asserted way. The thesis that Satan-like forces and forms of life are at play actually only arises from religious fanatics who seek in all inexplicable events satanic powers in order to make a secret or an event explainable to themselves. Firstly, Satan is only an imaginary product of your Christian religion. And secondly, this imaginary figure embodies neither darkness nor blackness, as is claimed, but light and the power of the radiation of truth. The events in Bermuda and the Bermuda Triangle are traced back to completely natural things. First and foremost, this place is a very suitable place for deep-sea piracy, as you call it, and such piracy events take place there again and again. On the other hand, this area is naturally very endangered by gases rising from the seabed, so that many ships sailing in this area suffer breakdowns and often sink into the sea with the whole crew and passengers to never be found again. But certain circles use these Bermuda Triangle events in a religious sense and to their own advantage, and clothe them in satanic powers. For about 2 decades, these events, which so far remain inexplicable for the terrestrial human beings, were additionally exploited in other forms by certain religiously dependent and unclearly working groups of ufologists who attributed the events to extraterrestrials. For them, these events were a found meal to feed credulous individuals with untrue and dishonest statements by inventing fantastically dark, satanic extraterrestrial powers, which are supposed to be responsible for the events in the Bermuda Triangle. The events in the Bermuda Triangle thus correspond to a purely speculative form, if they are associated with extraterrestrial intelligences.
Contact Report 034.
Okay, I have got now another question. Although we had last time already talked about it, however, some questions have arisen thereof from our discussion, namely from the Bermuda Triangle. After the discussion, it seems to me that you have once again explained only half of the facts and concealed the most important part. I have learned that over there, not only ships disappear, but also aircrafts.
In the past, I had once explained to you that there are 3 different locations on the Earth where fully natural dimension gates arise periodically. These gates signify a nature-based danger, cosmically caused and originating from time flows. This natural danger is the originator of many happenings, which affect the normal time of Earth, but just at those places where they appear. But on that, I will provide you with an explanation later on. First, I want to clarify some other facts. The events concerning the Bermuda Triangle are known worldwide, which is also to their benefit analyzed by certain dark figures. Those are seafaring men of Earth, which is also exploited by certain dark elements for their benefit, from simple piracy up to mass murder. They viciously board small cargo and passenger ships, seize the freight and the valuables, and then murder the crew and passengers. This is a kind of event that happens over there from time to time. Another form of occurrence in the Bermuda Triangle stems from a process natural to Earth, about which I had also already spoken with you during the last contact. This area is naturally endangered due to the dangerous rising up of seabed gases, which cause many ships navigating this location to suffer shipwreck over there and often submerge with all of their crew and passengers into the sea, never to be found again. I had really already explained that to you. The reason of those events is also that at this location, the entire seabed is in constant motion and relentlessly lifting and lowering itself. In that way, huge underwater mountains and plateaus are often within a few hours pressed upwards and changing the surface and subsurface of the sea. Very often, those changes are detected much too late by the skippers and their crews, and thus they and their ships collide at full speed with the upward pressed masses. This had already been the case in early times, while a continent had still been located there above sea level. It had been a large continent, inhabited by a highly advanced race. By a tremendous disaster, for which the residents had not been totally innocent, this continent sunk into the sea and was destroyed. Last but not least, the dangerous movements of the Earth and a cosmic event also played a role in this occurrence. The Dimension Gate also played a very important role. The events inside the Bermuda Triangle are likewise not mysterious, as is the case with the other two locations. Everything is explainable, and the events are really not associated with extraterrestrial intelligences who are allegedly over there, occupying themselves with kidnapping and satanic machinations. Certainly, there exist 2 small stations deep in the sea in the Bermuda Triangle, which are also inhabited for 3 years by extraterrestrial intelligences from our Federation. However, those are actually very distant descendants of the former inhabitants of the continent. But they are of absolutely peaceful nature and do not endanger any earthly life forms. Their space-flight-capable flying devices are also able to navigate in water and can dive to great depths. That is necessary, because their stations are located deep in the sea. Very often they can also be observed in those areas, while they surface from the water and vanish in the atmosphere. However, they have factually nothing to do with the events of the Bermuda Triangle, which is unfortunately claimed regarding them. These claims are actually only based on religious machinations of certain ufology groups, which, following their dishonest manner of working and based on religions, must have 2 kinds of powers, good and evil, in their teachings or irrational teachings, in order to appear as trustworthy from the perspective of their followers and believers. But now I want to explain the Dimension Gate to you. As already said, it is a cosmic phenomenon. Such a Dimension Gate represents a natural cosmic phenomenon, a barrier between your normal time and a dimension unknown to you. In the given case, this other dimension has a parallel world to Earth, which is, however, subject to greater fluctuations in landscape at some points. The dimension barrier, or the Dimension Gate, is caused by a cosmic elimination transformation radiation, which wavers and occurs periodically. Its point of origin are various giant suns in a galaxy unknown to you within a universe of other dimensions, which are sending out their radiations and are meeting in the other space-time structure in 7.2 light-years distance beyond the Earth. Over there, they begin to flow into one another and to bundle up. The Earth is the exact endpoint in the space-time structure of the Dern universe, where this radiation is hitting highly concentratedly and producing the effect of a dimension barrier. As the Earth moves, like all structures in the universe, this radiation, divided into a three-arm, only hits the planet at 3 locations, when the Earth is moving exactly in the focus of the wandering radiation, causing the 2 dimensions to be able to touch each other via the radiation. The radiation itself produces the effect of an elimination of the normal time, in a manner of evoking a transformation. That means that the structure of the earthly normal time is at the radiation flashpoints transformed into the timeless, through which the normal time is eliminated. This transformation layer is still located far outside of the actual center, which is already located in the other dimension. It is a similar process as the one known to you with cyclones. In the actual center of the storm there is calm, while the vortex contains the actual storm. The outer rings and whirls are the transition layer from stormless to the storm. It is similar with the dimension gate. The outer layers represent the transformation layer from the earthly normal time to the other dimension. The vortex's radiation contains the actual transition in it, while the center constitutes already the other dimension, a different universe, that is to say a different dimension within a different time layer. Look, if you want to depict it, you can do it so, as I am drawing it here in the sand. Sim Ya Se uses a piece of wood for creating a drawing on the floor. When later on recreating this drawing on paper, you will be able to easily recognize the facts from it, and they will also be understandable to all others. You see in my drawing that the principle of the storm follows and acts according to a precise harmony with the cosmic construction. This is the same event that emerges during the formation of a galaxy. The laws in macrocosm and microcosm are exactly the same and differ only in their order of magnitude. When you now start with the same drawing and imagine to see the dimensions barrier in it, you are again getting the same principle. Relatively seen, the processes remain exactly the same, with the only difference of their forces equaling fundamentally different types. Concerning the dimension gate, the forces are purely cosmic energies, radiations of a very special kind. The effect of the vortex or the spiral does anyhow remain the same, even if the appearance is different. The transition belt, the storm belt, and the center are here also present, just in a different form than for a galaxy or for a storm of nature's elements on a planet or a star, that is to say, on a sun. The transition zone or the transition layer is to be compared with a transition time between 2 world eras. The old and traditional normal time is still available, but it is already allowing a view into the other time level, into the other dimension and other world. So when a flying object enters this zone, with life forms sitting in it, well then they are still in the normal time, but are already looking into the other time layer, into the other world. Because during their flight they looking forwards, they see a world totally foreign to them and a foreign landscape, as long as they had never been there before. By the powers of the vortex, life forms, as long as they are not familiar with these happenings and are not possessing the required devices and apparatuses, lose control over their flying devices and are driven that way into the actual passage whirl, into the actual dimension gate. Over there, they are then already solely seeing the other world in the other dimension, while their normal time is already behind them. Then they are driven into the center of the spiral whirl and are therefore in the other time layer, thus in another world, that is to say, in a dimension totally foreign to them. Should they lack the required apparatuses and other devices, they become prisoners of the foreign dimension for all times, and a return into their normal time won't be there anymore for them. In and of itself, this happens rather frequently in the Bermuda Triangle, and earthly aircrafts are repeatedly disappearing over there, unable to ever return again. Many of these events in particular are related to the use of earthly aircrafts for hunting the beam ships of the life forms that are living there in underwater stations. The aircrafts are unexpectedly getting into the radiation of the dimensions barrier that suddenly gets active, and are carried off course into the other time layer, from where no return is possible for them. As I said already, these happenings, however, are evaluated in a religious manner and dressed up in totally false facts by very unreal and religiously confused practitioners of ufology Earth humans. It still remains to explain that not only flying machines are getting into these transformation spirals, but also ships and individual life forms, because the radiation field and the power of the elimination transformation of the worlds sometimes reaches to the surface of the sea.
The whole context is thus effectively not mysterious. But you had in the past mentioned that humans are also kidnapped by aliens in the Bermuda Triangle.
Sure, but it is as rare as it is on all the rest of the Earth. For those abductions, mainly the Giza intelligences are predominant, together with time travelers and other elements of the universe. However, these incidents are truly very rare and count for less than 0.02% of all abduction cases on the Earth.
Contact Report 038.
Now, however, I have one last question, namely concerning the Bermuda Triangle, and here especially because of the world in the other dimension. Can you describe this world to me?
There are several worlds and several dimensions, and if I had to describe them, it would go much too far. One of these worlds, however, is a parallel world to yours and has only minor differences. A second one, however, is very remarkable because 3 almost similar planets are in a line behind each other. So if you were to go through the dimensional gate, you would again come to an Earth or world, but in another dimension and thus in another time level. But the time lies very far back from your present time, namely in that time when the Earth, still inhabited by flying dinosaurs, was quite wild and fissured. You could not breathe the atmosphere there, and would have to wear a spacesuit or other protective suit.
So this means that the dimensional gate fluctuates in its intensity, and thus opens gates to different dimensions or spheres.
Sure, you expressed that very precisely.
Well, but now again to this triple world. If I would now go through the dimensional gate, then according to your explanation I would again be on a world or Earth. But millions of years back in the flying dinosaur era. Is that right?
Certainly.
Well, then I'm actually again, or still on a world similar to Earth, even if many millions of years in the past. If I now come into this world of the past, then according to your statements, I would still have to see the other worlds from that world, right?
Sure, and you would even see the other 2 planets very close, because they are only a few 100,000 kilometers apart. So once you would see the horizon of that primeval world on which you would just stand, as a second world you would see the middle world, which is still wrapped in a radiant steam coat, and as a third world you would see it roughly like the Earth as it exists here in the present time.
But that doesn't make sense.
It also took us a very long time to solve this strange mystery. In all parallel universes, there are also dimensional radiations that create the gate in the Bermuda Triangle. However, 500 years ago, when Venus shook the Earth, the dimensional harmony was disturbed, and 2 planets, the primordial planet and the gaseous planet, were dragged into the dimension of the completed planet, after which the dimensional gate returned to normal. Therefore, in that dimension, these 3 different planets exist in that solar system. So you could almost say that the same worlds there exist 3 times in 3 different stages of development, which of course is illogical.
Contact Report 039.
But how does it stand now with the dimension gate in the Devil's Triangle? Can one see this?
With eyes alone, it is not recognizable, but it is possible to make the radiation visible.
You mean that...
Sure, I can make the radiation visible by my ship. Only 2 paths of radiation are currently recognizable from this side of the Earth, however, while the third is behind the Earth and, therefore, cannot be seen from here.
Will I see that then on a screen?
No, you may recognize it through the viewing window because the visibility of the radiation occurs through a radiation shield that is spread out by the entire ship.
Girl, that is fantastic. I actually see 2 enormous paths of radiation. But in addition, there are still many balls and other things all around the Earth. What are these?
Those are concentrations of energy of the most diverse types and strengths. They orbit the Earth at irregular distances and intervals and are very important for the existence capability of the earthly life forms. I may not explain more about that. But now look, there are the Bermudas.
The view from here is magnificent. Geez, do you want us to drown in the sea?
I just want to go down close so that I can demonstrate the transition to you, as it is also experienced by earthly pilots and crews of ships. Consider now that with this transition, it does not concern that which normally exists. This is the transition into the dimension of the threefold world. So this is a different dimension than that one, into which ships and airplanes penetrate.
What type of dimension, then, does it concern with the other one?
In that dimension, the world is already suspended in the distant future, but the inhabitants on the Earth of that time very rarely penetrate from that.
So be it, girl. But, human child, we are already in the middle of the thing, and at the same time, one cannot see anything at all that would indicate a radiation or something. Girl, this is really fantastic. Wait, yes. Girl, behind us, I see my own world. And there in front is something completely foreign, something wild and quaint.
We are now at the exact crossroads of the vortex. Thus, you can see both dimensions. In front of us is the primeval world, as I described it to you.
Contact Report 053.
But now I have a question from Ara Schulheis in Biel. He asks for a place which must be somewhere in Africa and over which no airplanes could fly. Also, it is not possible to take photos from above, because only white spots would appear on the pictures. What is this all about?
I really don't know anything about that. The closest one I know is in Madagascar, which is a dimensional gate.
You mean the same effect as in the Bermuda Triangle in the Japanese Sea?
Certainly.
Contact Report 081.
The issues surrounding the Bermuda Triangle and the centers of Madagascar and the Japanese Devil's Sea have changed fundamentally. As you know, your entire solar system travels like a gigantic spaceship through interstellar space, approaching more and more the constellation of Hercules, which will be reached in about 2 millennia. Due to this migration of the entire Sol system, the axis point of the radiation of those large celestial bodies, which caused the dimensional gates in the Bermuda Triangle, in Madagascar, and in the Japanese Devil's Sea, has slowly shifted more and more. For about 18 years now, radiation has become weaker and more time differentiated, so that it has often been completely suspended for days on end. In the last 2 years, the radiation decreased even more and was completely neutralized several times, lasting months. The last offshoots of the radiation bands, which are measured in many light years, that were only fragmentary at their outermost ranges, last touched the Earth about 1 to 2 months ago on the 10th of July, 1977. Since then, the Earth is out of the range of the radiation, and no dimension barrier or dimension gate still exists at any other place on the planet. These phenomena are absolutely abolished and, according to our calculations, should never occur again, because the whole Sol system orbits the constellation of Hercules, and there are no stars at closer or further distances that would produce this kind of radiation. All occurrences in the Bermuda Triangle, near Madagascar, and in the Japanese Devil's Sea have been classified since the 10th of July 1977 in purely earthly natural occurrences, whereby the natural occurrences are to be named as the most important forces, in particular the geomagnetic and underwater gas surges, which occur very strongly at the places mentioned, whereby compass devices and many other navigation devices, etc., fail or show false indications, as this is the case with you at the center several times.
Do Madagascar, the Bermuda Triangle, and the Japanese Devil's Sea also lie at facet intersections like our center?
Certainly.
And is there then a connection with the radiation from space and with the facet intersections that was found there? Or there of all places?
No, it was a pure whim of the cosmic game.
Oh, so. Then the 2 or 3% where unexplainable events took place at these points are really just cancelled? It was only 2 or 3% that refer to the cosmic, and thus to the inexplicableness of all events in these places, was it not?
Sure, because about 98% of all events at these 3 places were mainly caused by Earth magnetic waves and Earth magnetic storms, as well as by climatic rapid changes, storms, aberrations, mutiny, crimes, and insurance fraud, as well as on a large scale by enormous undersea gas eruptions, etc.
Contact Report 101.
Do you know anything about the fact that in the depths of the sea in the Bermuda Triangle a huge pyramid is supposed to lie sunken? The baseline should be 333 meters and the height should be about 223 meters.
Something like this is not known to me.
Contact Report 150.
But I still have a question that was brought to me and that I would like you to answer, although I have already received the answer from Simyase. But maybe you can explain it again. Once again, it concerns the Bermuda Triangle, and this time, it is about the missing ships and aircraft, which are adjudged a mysterious and supernatural disappearance, such as, for example, with the bomb and torpedo aircraft that vanished in 1945 without a trace, and of those, Simyase said that these had hopelessly got lost in the fog and then crashed, on the one hand from lack of fuel, and on the other hand from reasons of navigational error.
That is of correctness.
You know that the most fantastic and craziest stories about the Bermuda Triangle are circulating on the Earth, and that many imaginatively gifted writers earn enormous amounts of money with a plethora of books, and that they still stupefy the human beings with these. Thus, extraterrestrials are blamed for all inexplicable Bermuda incidents, along with unexplainable supernatural or unearthly phenomena, all of which, of course, is outspoken nonsense because usually, the largest part of all incidents can be explained in a natural wise.
The Earth humans allow themselves to be mesmerized only too gladly by fantastic lies and frauds, because the given reality appears too commonplace to them in their dumb, deluded belief in the supernatural. But concerning the incidents in the Bermuda Triangle, I would like to tell you the following, which, however, must remain a secret for the time being. From around the month of April or May 1991, the fantasy stories surrounding the Bermuda Triangle incidents will take a turn in the direction that they can gradually be refuted. At that time, treasure hunters will find the first missing planes that crashed and sank into the sea from 1940 onwards. This, however, will only be the beginning of sporadic clarifications of seemingly mysterious occurrences in the Bermuda Triangle. Much will be cleared up, and it will lose the nimbus of the mysterious, but which does not mean that staunch, misguided ones, fanatics, mystics, fantasists, and know-it-alls will continue to cling to the stupidity of those delusionary explanations that speak of supernatural, unearthly, or extraterrestrial forces that are supposed to be connected with the Bermuda Triangle events. Such human beings will continue to exist. And as I think, this is unfortunately not to be changed.
Contact Report 229.
Then I still have another question regarding CFCs. Concerning this, you once told me that certain gases, which are stored under the bottom of the sea and which rise up, cause even greater damage to the ozone layer than CFCs. Now I no longer know what gas this was and out of what it arises.
It concerns methane gas, which is stored as methane hydrate under the sea.
At that time, you said that often enormous clouds of gas bubbles of this methane gas detach from the seabed, like, for example, in large masses in the Bermuda Triangle. These gas bubbles then rise to the sea's surface, where they form huge whirlpools, through which ships sink into the sea when they run into them, as the ships, due to the numerous gas bubbles in the water, are no longer carried by the water. If the gas clouds then ascend over the sea and fly into airplanes, then the methane gas becomes ignited by the engines or nozzles, whereby tremendous explosions arise and tear the airplanes into the smallest pieces. Is this right as such?
That is of correctness.
Contact Report 250.
Again and again new stories about the Bermuda Triangle arise, where there was a dimensional gate until the end of the 70s. Since then, however, according to your statements, this has disappeared. Nevertheless, one hears again and again unbelievable stories of events which are supposed to take place there. What is it?
With a few, very few exceptions, about which I do not want to give any further details, because only a nonsensical and unworldly speculation would arise from them. If they became known, they are completely natural occurrences. Under the seabed, there are huge earth chambers with gas hydrates, either in purely gaseous form or frozen as ice. This is usually methane gas. If submarine landslides or seabed movements take place, which are quite frequent in themselves, without seaquakes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, etc., then the gas hydrate depots of the seabed can be uncovered by creating cracks in the seabed, releasing the highly pressurized gases, or causing the ice masses to gasify tremendously quickly and shoot at a rapid pace to the sea surface, causing it to foam and bubble over large areas. The bubbling waters are interspersed with gases and lose their load-bearing capacity, whereby, for example, ships, which get into the bubbling waters, sink without rescue, capsize, and often explode into thousands of pieces or torn. If the highly explosive earth methane gases penetrate into the ships and ignite, exploding at some tiny sparks, as for example at electrical installations, etc., such gas explosions usually have a more powerful effect than bomb explosions, whereby the ships are torn into tiny pieces and can no longer be found. The enormous gas masses escaping from the seabed also escape naturally into the atmosphere and dilute the air enormously, whereby also this loses the carrying capacity. This, of course, means that when planes get into such areas, they are robbed of their air-bearing capacity, causing them to crash. The air simply becomes too thin for the heavy aircraft, so it no longer has any load-bearing capacity. These missiles, too, are usually torn to pieces by enormous explosions when the gases ignite on the aircraft engines or other propulsion units, or on electrical systems by tiny sparks. It also happens that engines and other propulsion equipment, as well as radio systems and compass systems, etc., suddenly malfunction or fail, just like highly sensitive electronic systems of all kinds. A fact that comes from the fact that the seawater brought to boil by the rapidly rising gases produces negatively charged ions, which form a field of negative electrical energy over the sea surface and high into the atmosphere, with a special and strong magnetic field in which all technical devices and apparatuses, etc., are disturbed and faulty or even fail if these come into the negative energy range. On the other hand, engines can suddenly stop in the gas-choked thin air due to a lack of oxygen, which can cause aircraft to crash and be torn apart by impact with the sea. Engines can also suddenly overheat due to lack of oxygen, etc. There are many ways in which ships and aircraft can disappear into the Bermuda Triangle without ever being found again and without supernatural forces, etc. being involved. By and large, there are always natural causes that lead to such events, which is why man should seek solutions for his secrets less in the supernatural than in reality.
Contact Report 385.
Back in the 70s and 80s of the last century, Quetzal, Simya Say, you and I talked on various occasions about what was happening in the Bermuda Triangle and in the Japanese Devil's Sea. You explained to me at that time that in both places there are frozen methane gases under the seabed, which are released and pushed to the surface of the sea as a result of seabed shifts, especially by seaquakes. If ships get into these gas clouds, which make the water unstable, they sink immediately and disappear with man and mouse into the depths of the sea. The same happens to airplanes that crash when the methane gas clouds rise high above the sea, causing the air to lose its carrying capacity. Both ships and airplanes crash and sink in such a matter of seconds that humans usually cannot even send out a distress call and cannot even save themselves. Furthermore, the Bermuda Triangle and the Japanese Devil's Sea are also made unsafe by piracy, whereby the captured ships are sunk and the crews murdered. The two places are also popular for insurance fraud, especially with ships that are sunk, as well as for the fact that humans are supposed to disappear without a trace, and then continue their lives with a new identity somewhere else. Again, as you have explained, insurance fraud occurs when large life insurance policies are taken out. This is what you have explained to me when I leave the dimensional gate, which according to your information has long since disappeared. Since those conversations, it has been completely forgotten that you promised me that you would mention other factors that lead to the disappearance of ships and planes in the Bermuda Triangle and the Japanese Devil's Sea. If you could make up for that now, dear friend?
It is true that the seabed of the Bermuda Triangle and the Japanese Devil's Sea contains bound methane, which, when released as methane gas bubbles, moves quickly to the sea surface and into the air, causing the density of the water to change in a flash, and it loses its carrying capacity, causing missiles and ships, when they get into the gas bubbles, to sink into the sea without a trace within seconds. In addition to the above-mentioned facts, electromagnetic factors of the Earth play a major role in the crashes of aircraft and the sinking of ships. In the areas mentioned above, very strong electromagnetic oscillations occur very frequently, which extend high into the atmosphere and cause dangerous compass disturbances, causing the control apparatus or navigation instruments of the ships and aircraft to break down in their function and show completely wrong values. As a result, the pilots of the aircraft and ships lose their orientation and head for the wrong positions, which very often leads to the crash of the aircraft or the sinking of the ships. The electromagnetic oscillations of the Earth continue to produce luminous phenomena which are seen as light objects, and these very often also occur in the form of seaquake lights, and in the same way as earthquake lights. The electromagnetic forces in the Bermuda Triangle and in the Japanese Devil's Sea are extraordinarily strong and cause even hard metal to break or hurl even large missiles through the air or large ships through the water, tearing them apart and sinking into the sea without leaving a trace. Also luminous gas clouds, which rise from the bottom of the sea to the surface and into the air, as it happens also in moorland areas with regard to the so-called will-o'-the-wisps, but also ball lightning, are frequent phenomena which occur at the mentioned places. Experts call these light phenomena UFOs, which happens especially by people who are of esoteric and religious faith, whereby they regard the appearing phenomena as of extraterrestrial origin, which is of course nonsense because real extraterrestrial flying machines, which are piloted by life forms, correspond to an absolute rarity. Another important factor that leads to the sinking of ships in the Bermuda Triangle and in the Japanese Devil's Sea is that in these two areas, different ocean currents create so-called monster waves to which the ships fall victim. Such monster waves are not rare and reach heights of 30 to 45 meters, endangering even the largest and largest ships. Many unexplained shipwrecks on all the world's oceans of the earth, from ancient times until today, have been attributed to such monster waves, and this will continue to happen in the future. This also means that such piled-up water masses do not only appear in the Bermuda Triangle and in the Japanese Devil's Sea, but on all the seas of the earth.
Contact Report 471.
At the 385th official contact conversation on the 21st of April 2005, we talked about the monster waves that appear on the world's oceans and cause ships to sink.
Such monster waves or killer waves, respectively rogue waves, as they are also called by sailors, do not only appear on the oceans, but also on big lakes. They are equally dangerous for shipping on the seas and on the big lakes, because they cause even very large ships, such as ocean liners, but also large oil platforms to capsize, smash them by the force of the water masses, or simply break them in two. However, this is not uncommon, as might be assumed, because in fact, such giant waves occur practically daily, even if they are not observed and do not cause any visible damage. Such wave formations are usually piled up by small waves that quickly join together and become a single large structure, especially when counter-currents or counter-waves are involved. Such giant waves are also created by large storms and countercurrents, as well as by seaquakes, and also by the fact that large waves break at islands and their outer sides pass them on both sides, only to reassemble on the other side of the island with enormous strength and become a monster wave. These not seldom reach 20 to 30 or more, rarely even 40 and 45 meters high. Here and there it also happens that two such gigantic waves follow each other at a greater distance. It is also a fact that many more ships disappear without a trace on the oceans and large lakes, together with their crews, than are made public. This also applies to the Bermuda Triangle and the Japanese Devil's Sea, where, in addition to the fact that methane gas clouds rising from the seafloor cause ships and airplanes to be torn apart, monster waves also occur very frequently, through which ships are smashed, torn in two, or simply capsized and torn to the bottom. Worldwide, there are usually between 95 and 105 ships of all sizes, from the smallest to the largest, that disappear without a trace every year.
Contact Report 507.
Then something else concerning methane, respectively methane hydrate, which we have already talked about privately, but about which I think that some words should also be said in an official contact report. Like your father Svath and Quetzal, you also explained to me that in the bottom of all seas of the world there are enormous amounts of bound methane gas, respectively methane hydrate, much more than all petroleum, natural gas, and all coal together. Some of this methane gas is constantly freeing itself from the water and rising through the water, which also influences the climate. When large quantities of methane are released and rise above the surface of the water, ships can lose their hold in the water and sink forever in half a second. Airplanes can also crash and disappear into the sea when large clouds of methane gas rise, such as in the Bermuda Triangle and in the Japanese Devil's Sea, where ships and planes disappear again and again.
Contact Report 518.
3 days ago, I was rummaging through old notes and found a note about so-called electromagnetic nebulae. Your daughter Sim-Ya-se once made some remarks, which I remember her saying that such strange nebulae are strange clouds and are very dangerous in relation to aeroplanes and ships, etc. Unfortunately, she did not say more.
Electromagnetic nebulae are cloud formations, which consist of electromagnetically charged layers and also have different layer forms. In certain areas of the Earth, they can occur more frequently and can also float at higher altitudes as well as above the oceans. This can put aircraft and ships in great danger by causing them to lose their way because the electromagnetic radiation of the fog clouds interferes with the functioning of their navigational equipment to such an extent that completely incorrect position and altitude information appears. Aeroplanes can fly in circles until their fuel is used up, which then leads to a crash, while ships and boats can run aground or be smashed against rocks.
And where do such electromagnetic nebulae occur?
The possibility of the appearance of such formations is everywhere, but increasingly over the southern Atlantic Ocean and in the Pacific. Such phenomena occur very rarely in mountains, and even more rarely in the lowlands. Many aircraft which disappeared during their flight have crashed into the oceans as a result of incorrect navigation instructions given by their equipment when they entered into the electromagnetic fog. Many ships and boats have also sunk so untraceably when they are smashed against cliffs, etc.
Then, for example, such events could also have occurred in the Bermuda Triangle and in the Japanese Devil's Sea, etc., along with the clouds of methane gas rising up from the seabed and dissolving out of the methane hydrate, causing ships and aircraft to sink and disappear lifelessly into the deep clefts of the seabed. This is in addition to what happened with the megawaves, which have torn larger and larger ships into the depths of the oceans since time immemorial. On all the waters of the Earth, about 104 large and larger ships and boats disappear every year, that is 2 a week.
That is indeed so, yes.
So in the Bermuda Triangle and in the Japanese Devil's Sea, these electromagnetic nebulae must also be considered.
That is so. But there are other factors such as insurance fraud and piracy, and also other facts that lead to the disappearance of aircraft and ships.
Contact Report 535.
On television, they have once again made a program about the conspiracy theories around the Bermuda Triangle. There is a theory, which we talked about before, that Atlantis existed in that area, which is absolute nonsense, as I know from you, because Atlantis was located elsewhere in the east. But now it is even claimed that in the Bermuda Triangle, in the supposedly sunken Atlantis, there is a giant crystal that emits very strong vibrations, which would cause ships to sink there, and also aeroplanes to crash if they were hit by the crystal vibrations. The reason why there is nothing to be found could be due to time tunnels through which everything disappears. But you once told me that only a few sunken ships and crashed airplanes have been found in the Bermuda Triangle because of the currents there, which simply wash away ships and airplanes or their debris when they sink and get caught in the currents.
What you say is correct, and of course the story of the Great Crystal is based on a completely absurd conspiracy theory.
Contact Report 581.
There was the legendary Flight 19 of the American Air Force on 5 December 1945, which is still haunting the minds of the human beings, Because 5 fighter bombers or something and a seaplane disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle. Even Svath, your father, spoke vaguely about this in 1949, mentioning that the 5 fighter planes in the Bermuda Triangle had been caught in electromagnetic vortices, which caused the onboard instruments to go crazy and fail. This was absolutely certain, he said, because he had had his own experience in this area, and had been hurled with his pear-shaped beam ships through an electromagnetic eddy canal from Bermuda to Florida and Georgia, and into the area of the so-called Okefenokee Swamp within a few minutes, far more than 1,000 kilometers. So he suspected that the same thing could have happened to the pilots, that they had just been caught in an electromagnetic vortex tunnel, which caused them to get lost with their machines and to fly over the mainland through the electromagnetic vortex, without them noticing and also without being able to determine where they were. And as Svath said, if I remember correctly, the 5 machines could have crashed, according to his calculations, into the vast Okefenokee Swamp, which covers almost 1,800 square kilometers, and been swallowed up by it, never to be seen again. The swamp belongs to the U.S. states of Georgia and Florida. Maybe you know more about it?
My father told me about it, but he explained it with reservations, because what he said was only an assumption based on his own experience. He did not clarify the matter himself, nor did any of us, because it was not in our interest to do exact research to clarify the whole thing.
That what Svath said was only a supposition is something I know, and I also said that. But what I wonder about the electromagnetic vortex tunnels is why do they occur especially in the Bermuda Triangle?
We have clarified the whole question of the formation of such long electromagnetic vortices in our own interest, so I can say that they are based on an interaction of solar, cosmic, and very strong geomagnetic factors occurring in the Bermuda Triangle. So very strong electromagnetic forces from the Earth's interior are at work there, as they also occur, for example, in the Japanese Devil's Sea. These geomagnetic factors, in interaction with the electromagnetic energies of the Sun and other stars from the Sol range, create the phenomena of electromagnetic vortices, which act like wormholes, but which have so far only been assumed by terrestrial scientists to be theoretical. Since electromagnetic vortex tunnels, as you call them, actually build up again and again and therefore act like the theoretical wormholes, it follows that planes and ships, etc., that enter them are transported over hundreds and thousands of kilometers within a very short time, often only a few minutes, and the result is that the wormholes are not only the result of the electromagnetic vortexes, but also of the electromagnetic vortexes themselves. This is also the reason why, as in the Bermuda Triangle, no or only very rarely crashed aircraft or sunken small or large ships can be found, precisely because these crash or sink into the sea hundreds or thousands of kilometers further away when they emerge from the electromagnetic eddies. It should also be pointed out that, on the other hand, in the Bermuda Triangle there is also a very strong northerly current in the sea which drives crashed planes or sunken ships hundreds of kilometers northwards, so that planes cannot be found at the sites of crashes or sunken ships cannot be found at the sites of their sinking. The Bermuda Triangle also has an increased incidence of monster waves which cause ships to be torn down and swept away by the north current.
This is something I know about ocean currents and monster waves, because your father also talked about it in the 1940s. But look here, I copied something from the internet about Flight 19, if you're interested, because I wanted to ask you about it.
That, Edward, dear friend, what is written here is not known to me.
Contact Report 670.
1948. Due to the pole wandering ongoing for a very long time, there is, in the Bermuda Triangle, an area north of the Caribbean, which lies between the island of Bermuda, a British overseas territory in the Atlantic, and the coast of Florida, which, in the first beginnings, begins to enlarge, whereby it will expand in the coming times and far into the third millennium. The same happens with the counterpart, the Dragon's Triangle in the Devil's Ocean, in an area in the Pacific, approximately 100 kilometers south of Tokyo, Japan, off the Miyake Island. The Dragon Triangle and the Bermuda Triangle are known as places where ships and aircraft disappear under mysterious circumstances. The peculiarity of the two triangles is that, on the one hand, both are at the same degree of latitude and are almost at opposite points, but where so-called ghost ships turn up in both regions. In the world's oceans, the monster waves, Three Sisters, and White Walls will increase in the future due to a climate collapse that has already begun and is rapidly advancing, and also due to the pole wandering that has also been ongoing for several centuries, which will also relate to the Cavantsman phenomenon. The monster waves, that is to say, the mega waves, which have frequently appeared since oceans have existed, can become more than 30 meters high and even pull large ocean vessels irretrievably into the depths.
Contact Report 728.
We have already talked several times about the Bermuda Triangle, where I was also with your father Sfath, and he explained various things to me. So also with regard to the methane gases on the seabed, which dissolve, rush upwards and dilute the water and the air in such a way that even large ships disappear into the sea, and also aeroplanes suddenly crash. Ships and planes are then also driven very far away by the currents and can no longer be found, or only with difficulty. But ships are also sunk by huge monster waves, as I saw one that Sfath measured at almost 42 meters high. In addition, magnetic storms also occur from time to time in that huge area from the Earth's interior, as Sfath explained, which are particularly fatal to aircraft. That's one thing, because there are other phenomena that occur in the Bermuda region, as well as in other places, such as the Japanese Devil's Sea, that is to say the Dragon's Triangle, an area in the Pacific that is about 100 kilometers south of Tokyo, near Miyake Island. What happens there and in the Bermuda Triangle also happens in other places in the Atlantic and the Pacific, but also in the Indian Ocean and other places where ships disappear without a trace, which at present is said to be about 2 ships a week, as some statistics show. However, it is not always natural events that drag ships into the depths of the seas. It is also not uncommon for insurance fraud or other criminal activities to be involved. But I am also aware, as Sfath has already told me, that in the various strange places where ships and aircraft sometimes actually disappear in strange ways, the processes are entirely of natural origin, with a single exception. But I should keep my mouth shut about that, just as I do about the other phenomena that cause ships and aircraft to disappear without a trace. Your father Sfath made me see some phenomenal things in this respect, in addition to tremendously gigantic megawaves and methane gas explosions that blew up very high explosion fountains over the surface of the water. But now I ask myself, because the following internet excerpt was sent to me, whether I should also remain silent in this day and age about what other phenomena, unknown to earthly scientists, still exist, which in the Bermuda Triangle and other places, as in general above and in the seas, the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans, etc., are the doom of ships and aeroplanes. They are the doom of ships and aeroplanes and cause them to disappear. What do you think about that?
I suppose there is no objection to saying something about what knowledge my father has imparted to you. This also with regard to the phenomena which you have mentioned, and which are still unknown to Earth humans, but which I myself have also been able to observe, because I too am interested in the occurrences which appear so mysterious to Earth humans, but which are absolutely natural.
Good, then I can say something, even though antagonists, know-it-alls, complainers, scientists, Researchers and other negators of various kinds are again running amok against me and my presentation. So I will say that I have seen many phenomena in your father Svath's pairship that are actually not visible to the naked eye, but can only be made visible electronically on screens. This was the case, for example, far out at the edge of our solar system, but also on SOL planets and their moons, but also on and around the Earth, when Svath let me see the solar winds, etc. Well, what I want to say now, however, is that in the Bermuda Triangle and also elsewhere in areas of the world's oceans, gigantic shock underwater storms and shock over water. Storms are taking place which cannot be detected without highly sensitive electronic equipment and can only be made visible on monitors equipped for this purpose. One of these phenomena, which I will simply call underwater shock storms, is that gigantic shock waves race through the depths of the oceans at hundreds of kilometers per hour and act like gigantic hammer blows on everything that comes within their range. If ships are hit by them, no matter how small, large or powerful, the shockwave forces acting on them cause demolitions and sink the ships in seconds or minutes, while they are also carried away by the tremendously gigantic shockwave forces, to then disappear somewhere in the sea, never to be seen again. These shockwaves, Svath explained, are caused by two different phenomena, either by magnetic storms taking place on the inside and deep inside the planet, which act outwards and thus into the oceans and also into the atmosphere. And on the other hand, this can also explain the fact that shockwave storms also occur above the oceans, which race through the atmosphere at speeds of hundreds of kilometers per hour, can reach heights of many kilometers, and therefore also simply tear apart aeroplanes, hurl them away and bring them down, never to be found again. But this is not all, for further shockwaves are caused by seaquakes, earthquakes, and the irresponsible actions of mankind, in that the earth is shaken to its very core by bombs dropped in wars and other violent explosions, which cause shockwaves in the oceans and fresh waters. Likewise, the same thing happens with all tremendous blasts, such as those in mining, earth resource extraction, tunneling, and other irresponsible planet-shaking and mischief-making machinations of earthlings who have no idea whatsoever of the planetary effects of their violent actions. All geological scientists have only a big mouth and make themselves important in public with stupid banal slogans and bogus explanations, but they really know nothing about everything that is really happening on the planet. They also have no idea whatsoever of the all-destructive, monstrous, and criminally and irresponsibly caused damage and destruction to the planet to satisfy the needs of the Earthling overpopulation. And these monstrous Earthling machinations continue unabated and destroy the planet Earth more and more, because overpopulation continues to be rampant in its growth, as well as the entire economic commerce connected with it and geared to unlimited profit, which, in order to procure the ever more exuberant needs of the rampant overpopulation, is doing everything in its power to slowly but surely destroy all possibilities of life and existence on Earth completely. In addition to all this, human beings are becoming more and more callous and indifferent towards each other in relation to the increase of the overpopulation mass, more and more hostile, unrelated, malignant, and degenerating, as well as more and more indecent, psychologically unstable and sickly and incapable of life.
Contact Report 791.
There was also talk of the earthly magnetic field, which is not constant and wanders, and consequently manifests itself in the most diverse phenomena, such as compasses going haywire, as for example in the Bermuda Triangle, or in the Japanese Devil's Sea, etc.